Avowed isn't trying to be Pillars of Eternity, or Skyrim for that matter. Instead, it carves out its own space as a fast-paced, spunky action RPG packed with vibrant exploration, thrilling combat, and just enough choice to keep you hooked.
Careful, darling.
But with a lighter narrative and a focus on spectacle over strategy, will it win over fans of deep story-driven RPGs, or leave them wanting more?
Hey! Over here!
Have we ever told you how much we love the Outer Worlds? Sure, there was a little pushback when it launched. Some folks thought it was too short, too lightweight and wishy-washy, but we loved everything about it.
You're right.
Obsidian seemed to actively decide to remove itself from what felt like a race circa 2019 to make the most pointlessly enormous open world in the business. It was also around this time that we, or PJ did at least, had sort of given up on spending hundreds of hours collecting everything across gigantic and oftentimes boring video game expanses. Pretty and historically accurate expanses for sure, but also very empty and bland.
Oh gosh.
In comparison, the Outer Worlds felt immediate and exciting for its smaller world and tight running time. The companion characters are amongst our favorites of all time. Parvati, we miss you, babe. And the whole thing felt like a challenge that was actually surmountable, highly replayable, and well worth returning to. Avowed follows much in the same footprints, thankfully. The Eora presented here is split into bespoke regions, each one relatively small in comparison to most modern offerings, which is still quite big then, and it's a downsizing that's a fair trade-off for locations that are packed to bursting point with smartly designed environments housing all the secrets, caves, and off-kilter NPC conversations that you could hope for.
Hear me. Then you can decide if we part as friend or as foe.
There is no wandering around bored in this game. We can't think of a single moment where we weren't doing something that felt somewhat important. And when you don't even get a horse to quickly ride around on, that takes some doing.
You're alive. Thank the gods I pulled you out the wreck when I did.
Kicking off in Dawnshore, Avowed presents the story of yet another Chosen One protagonist, which as much as we're sort of bored of this concept, it does just allow us to get on with accepting that everybody speaks to us for some reason.
This dock is reserved for the Imperial Envoy. And he's late. Probably died at sea. Good riddance. What?
Nice.
This time, you've got a god's voice in your head, and that voice wants you to go and do a bunch of stuff, and kill a bunch of people, in order to free it from its otherworldly prison. Should you trust the voice? Should you follow its command and do its bidding? Or should you strike out against it and believe in what you can see with your own eyes?
We have waited for you. Come.
A very short summary, but that's the spoiler-free gist of proceedings. Having now completed one run of the campaign, clocking in at around 50 hours with a smattering of side quests, we can say that the story works well enough to serve what is primarily an action-centric experience. And this faint praise will be the first stumbling block for some, as the narrative here is quite surprisingly straightforward, and fairly light overall.
Why is it that whenever I hear your name, it's because you've disgraced the Empire?
There's nothing here that we haven't seen before in a fantasy drama of this kind, essentially. And although Pillars fans will be made happier with a ton of lore presented throughout the world, and some amazing representations of locations, there's undoubtedly going to be some ruffled feathers with just how very light the actual conversational and choice side of things is. Your 4 party companions too, although likable enough, never really raise the bar in any striking way, remaining loyal, doing their bit in battle, and sharing the odd joke along the way. Would we need to look up their names if we weren't trying to name drop them right now? Yes we would, for 1 or 2 at least. And that tells you all you need to know. Parvati et al., they are not, as this is just not really that sort of thing.
You don't know anything about me, you Adira Nimdut. So maybe go back and take another blessed day sip.
Avowed, you see, is chiefly about getting down and dirty with the enemy in combat that absolutely sings if you dig its vibe. We played around 90% of the game in first-person view, although the third-person view will get a run in our second character build, and it's just a delightful system to engage with. Again, incredibly light in what it does. There's no synergies of team abilities or deep strategy to think on. It just feels really good. It's fast, it's flashy, it's Moorish. It makes us think of words like spunky. Avowed is very spunky, okay? A lack of strategy doesn't equal a lack of fun either, as the dual-wielding, quick-switching, double loadout gimmick at the heart of its fighting has a surprising amount of variety to it. This variety melds with skill trees that are open to breezy experimentation, allowing you to quickly build and rebuild, creating powerful wizards who are also a dab hand with a spear, shadow master stealth assassins, and everything in between. Swapping weapon loadouts is quick and can be made quicker as you progress, allowing you to access 4 slots with which you can place swords, spears, shields, grimoires, wands, axes, and so on in any combo you like. Mix and match, see what works best for you, and then build out your skill trees to max that playstyle. By the end of our first run, we could waltz through entire areas without being seen, one-hit lesser foes from range, and rain down powerful fire spells. You don't even have to stick to one type of magic, as the Grimoire system allows you to seek out and utilize all manner of arcane arts just by equipping any Grimoire you find and getting stuck in. Hooray! Speaking of finding stuff, by the way, the loot in this game is just kind of great. It's unfussy, fancy looking gear, all big fiery swords, important looking shields, and exquisite arquebus rifles that can pop a plague-infected bear's head like a melon from range. We stuck to light outfits, bows, grimoires, and guns, but there are tons of spears, axes, heavy armor, and so on. In fact, with regards to both combat and loot, the only problem that we personally had was that the grenades feel like an afterthought for the most part, in comparison to the devastation wrought by a simple spell. Companions, too, have their own unlockable and upgradable skills that they can utilize automatically. And these can be directed by you using LB, pausing proceedings to pick exact skills and then the enemies to use them on. Skills work on cooldown timers, and this makes up the little piece of strategy meat that's going on here. This isn't the sort of pause screen you'll spend aeons tinkering in or working out killer synergies of elemental damage though. It's just not that kind of gig, mate. The flashy, colorful, and fast-paced action on offer is the beating heart of Avowed, for better or for worse. And the relatively bite-sized nature of the regions, alongside that breezy narrative, only serve to make the whole thing much more replayable, which kind of feels like the point.
Are you sure about this?
Don't worry, I'm a professional.
So, in the end, Avowed arrives in pretty great shape overall, and presents a very Moorish, highly replayable campaign that we will 100% be running multiple times as various classes over the coming months. Which really speaks to the fun that we've had with this one. Just don't expect Pillars of Eternity or flipping Skyrim. Have you not played enough Skyrim by now? Come on! Avowed is a fantastic action RPG that focuses on its combat and exploration first and foremost, which you'll either love the sound of or not so much. Yes, Pillars fans looking for the sort of depth that comes with the series will need to adjust their expectations accordingly, as this is a breezy, spunky, fight-fueled affair that's more about creating cool loadouts and finding cool treasure than it is about falling in love with an NPC, or spending tens of hours in your inventory at a time. If you come for the fast-paced fights, colorful environments, and excellent exploration, you're bound to have a great time. Well, that about does it for PJ O'Reilly's review of Avowed, with Pure Xbox rewarding it a great score of 8 out of 10. If you're on the fence whether to give Avowed a go, let me reiterate, if you enjoyed The Outer Worlds, which its sequel is supposed to drop this year too, then you'll enjoy Avowed. Just swap sci-fi for fantasy and you'll get the gist. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and all that's left to say is bye-bye for now. Cheerio!